What's going on, y'all? We are back out here again in the shop, trying to get back to Project Gus Gus. Trying to do it while we still have good weather here in Colorado. The game plan for right now is get the old steering box out, then replace that with a new unit. The old one was leaking. Figure while we have the truck apart, we might as well fix that too. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, you guys, we are on top of the steering box where the intermediate shaft sits. You guys can see there's a bolt right here. We're going to have to disconnect that to get the shaft off the steering box. Then we'll disconnect the power steering lines and the 3 bolts from the inner frame structure, and the box should be out on the ground. So we're running a 3/8 drive 13mm socket on top of the bolt with a long extension and a short extension. I've got my ratchet here, and we're going to go ahead and work this out. Bear with me one second. So once this gets loose, just get our tools out of the way. Should be able to reach underneath this hose here, pull the bolt out, and there you have it, the intermediate shaft bolt. Now we should just be able to pull the intermediate shaft off and compress it here, like so. Now that is out of the way. Gotta get a bucket underneath it. There are 2 lines that go to the top of the steering box. You guys can see them right here, 1 and 2. Get some line wrenches, get those free. Not exactly user friendly, I mean, I guess, or worker friendly. I guess if the radiator hose wasn't in the way, I could get you guys a clearer picture, but we're working with what we got. Alright, so these fittings are 18mm down here. There's 2 of them. There's a high pressure and a low pressure. And the pin, so let me go ahead and see if I can break these loose. I might need both hands. This job is not camera friendly, guys. Sorry about this. Pressure line is out. Now the way to tell a low pressure line from the high pressure line for the power steering system is the low pressure line will just use a single hose clamp. The high pressure line is a crimp fitted setup like this. What's crazy is I just replaced this box about a year ago, and the pulley broke off the front of it, the original one, and it looks like this one's weeping now too. So we'll have to see if this is going to need a new power steering pump while we're in here. And now we got I showed you guys the lines. Got to disconnect the high pressure line from down below. It's the last one down there. You guys can see right here. We'll disconnect that. Let the hose hang in a bucket so at least we don't make a mess. Then it'll be the 1, 2, 3 bolts in the frame to take that off. So let's say we're going to go ahead and pull this high pressure line off. Traditionally I would use a line wrench, but it just didn't give me enough room to turn and maneuver in here. So traditional open end wrench it's going to have to be. You guys can tell that these lines are, this is the original box, these lines were stuck on here good. So get this loose, then on to the next step. Alright, kind of hard to see, but we got the line almost loose. Finish it off by hand. Trying to be careful not to get a lot of gunk in these lines. Like I said, they are kind of covered in crap. So, go ahead and hang that down. Make sure we have a good spot. for it to catch. Unfortunately, it's running off the pivot arm. We'll go ahead and get, I think these are 15s or 16s, and start pulling these 3 bolts. Let me get some tools together. Be right back with you. I stand corrected. These are 5/8 inch heads. Now this is going to be the fun one, because once this goes, the box will go. Alright guys, I'm going to have to let go and grab the steering box. Steering box is on the ground. Now let me show you guys something. Those of you who know XJs know the factory spacer breaks. If you haven't replaced it yet, if you're doing your steering box, now is the time to do so. I bought this Iron Rock one spacer when I did the suspension the first time. Just cheap insurance. You guys already have a part, might as well replace it. Here's a better view of the old steering box. You guys can tell it's been weeping from seals for a while. We're just going to go ahead and get this pitman arm off, and then come over here to the new one and put that on. I might hold off on putting the pitman arm actually on the new one though until it's in the Jeep, just so I can make sure that the steering box is centered, lock to lock. We'll also have to take these caps off. Thanks to Gabriel Miller for hooking me up with a good deal on this steering box. Oh, and if my audio sounds different, we just had a new microphone setup show up, so we're trying a mic out to see if you guys can hear me better. So we've got our socket. I'm going to put it on here and just break this loose. Hopefully it works easily. Alright, just like that. Pitman arm should be ready to come off. I doubt it'll just pull off. They never do. So we grab our 3-jaw puller and come in here as best as we can. Unless yours is bound up like mine is. Try to get a bite as best we can. And grab a crescent wrench and pull that free. Unless it pops free like that just happened. Might not be the best puller, but this is what I've got, so we'll have to figure out how to make it work. We're not getting a bite. Bear with me one second, guys. 3-jaw puller didn't work, so I'm gonna have to make a run to Harbor Freight and see if they've got a puller that's affordable. They're usually pretty good about tools when you need them in a pinch. So I'm gonna have to go look around down there, see if I can find the right puller. I guess we'll get cleaned up, stop this here for the day, and come back tomorrow. Well, 3-jaw puller didn't work, and my other puller I had, I forgot broke, and I tossed it. So we'll go to Harbor Freight and see if they have a pitman arm puller. They usually do pretty good on having what we need. And I just found out looking on Google that they just opened a new one out here near me instead of having to drive all the way across town. So it'll be effective, and I shouldn't be spending 30 minutes each way on the road. So let's get over there and see what they got. We got a new Harbor Freight in town, a lot closer to the house, which means things will be easier for me. No more spending money on tools on Amazon or running to Lowe's, O'Reilly, AutoZone for expensive tools. You get some good quality tools at Harbor Freight for a decent price. I just picked up this Pitman arm puller for 18 bucks, and AutoZone wanted 110 for it, or $20 to rent it. So we got one for the toolbox now. Well, here we go. Just a little 2-jaw puller, 3/8 drive, so you can either use a wrench or a ratchet. Should be good to go now. Let's get home and try this out. All right, so we are back from Harbor Freight. Got the kids from school. They're getting a little break before they get to homework, so I figured I would try to pull this real quick. See if this 2-jaw puller works properly. I don't want to get all greasy, and normally I don't care, but still in halfway decent street clothes. So slide this over, tighten it down until it bites. As I said before, you could use a 3/8 inch or just a wrench. I'm going to make a little bit of a mess here, getting fluid everywhere. I might be coming out with an impact gun here in a second. All right, bear with me one second, guys. I'm going to get a socket. This is where frustration started setting in. The impact gun wasn't moving or putting enough pressure on the puller to get it to pull free. Brought out some MAP gas, and that didn't seem to want to work. Tried this for about 8 minutes or so. Didn't want to bore you guys with it, so I sped it up. Finally got to a point where I just had to set my tools down and walk away. Highly frustrating moment. Well, tried and failed. I've got to come back up with a game plan on how to get this off of here. All we're doing is damaging the end of the steering box, and we're starting to mushroom the tip of this, which is to be expected. It's nothing to say about the tool quality. Put an impact gun on anything and you'll eventually damage it. So let me see what I can come up with, or we order another Pitman arm. Make life easy. Well, we finally got the Pitman arm off. It was a trick. We put the puller back on it, got the Pitman arm hot with some MAP gas. As we were hitting the Pitman arm with a hammer, I was also working my impact gun to keep tension on the puller, and it finally popped off. So now we have everything off. We can go ahead and put this back in tomorrow and start getting our steering connected and start working on the long arms after the steering. We are back. We got the box, the old box taken apart, new one ready to go in. We start with our steering spacer. Get this situated in here. We just want a bolt or two in here just to hold the spacer in place. Then we can go ahead and get the box mounted up. So there's 3 bolts for this box, as I stated when I was taking this out. So we got that in. Woohoo! Excuse me, guys. You can go ahead and hit stop real quick. Alright, you guys. We were fighting these bolts kind of something fierce, and I didn't really want to record it. So, I discovered I've got a bent bolt. How the bolt is bent and the frame is straight, I don't know. More accident woes. I'll have to find a steering box bolt. But we can go ahead and get these two bolts tightened up. The third hole is lined up. I'm not going to worry about it for now. I mean, we'll get a new bolt in it, but for you guys right now, we'll get this running. Alright, with this done, we're going to move to the top side. We'll go ahead and get the lines in with new O-rings, get the steering shaft on. Then we'll come back down here, get the track bar bracket off, and get the new track bar assembled. I don't think we'll get the long arms done in this video, but we'll see. Alright, so we are back up top. You guys can see there's a little O-ring right here. Now it says to replace the fittings or the O-rings when you put the new box in. So a little pick, we'll get that right off. It just fell down below. And then we take our new one and you guys can see new fittings or new O-rings. I don't know why I keep calling them new fittings, but whatever. I'm going to go ahead and take this, just slide it. You guys want to make sure these surfaces are clean. We don't want dirt under our O-rings or else they won't seal. Same thing with the fitting line. Nice and clean. And yes, I've got electronics in my way from the old ABS setup. So go ahead and put this new O-ring on. It should just roll over the edge there, like so. You guys can see how that sits right here. Then we'll go ahead and put the new one on the low pressure line. It had one. So we got that done. Now what we'll do is get some wiring out of our way here. We'll go ahead and put the high pressure line in first because it came off last. Then we'll go ahead and put the low pressure line in. We still have to remove the caps that are in here as well. And I gotta see if I can do that by hand. Might need a flathead screwdriver. I'll be right back with you. A little bit of a flathead screwdriver action here. Just unscrew these caps off the new box. And they'll fall on the ground, but we can pick them up later. Not too worried about that. Oops. Might have to put some light on the situation here. Let's see. Fittings off, or caps off. Even the cap had an O-ring. So now that we got this in here, I'm going to need to get some light on it because I can't see. And we'll go ahead and go from there. Alright, so we're starting with the high pressure fitting. Getting it started by hand. That's the one that came off last, so we're going to put it on first. Once we get it as hand tight as possible, we're going to go ahead and switch over to using a wrench and get that snugged up. Now, with the Jeep on jack stands, it doesn't make it easy for me to reach. So we'll snug this down with an 18. If you guys can, got a line wrench that fits, I'd recommend it. So we'll get that snugged down, and then we'll switch over to the low pressure side. Alright, we got the high pressure side tight. Now we're going to get this low side in. You got to fish it through all the lines, and the hose is down here. And then it kind of crosses over the high pressure side. And then it'll start by hand just like we did the other one. Get this snugged in, and then we will go ahead and get it tightened down, and then we'll work on the intermediate shaft and then check the steering box for center. Getting the final tighten up on these lines. Then we'll put the intermediate shaft in. Now with the intermediate shaft, we don't need to tighten it up right away. We want to make sure it's centered. I believe we had 3 locks turn to turn. So that put us like 1.5 from center point. So we're working on getting the shaft on here. Once it gets good enough, like I said, we're going to check the steering. Lines are tight. Now we're going over here, putting the steering shaft on. Just got to get the bolts in it, and then we'll check for center. The intermediate shaft on, we're going to put the bolt in it. We don't want to tighten anything down for now. We just want to get it snugged up, make sure it doesn't come off. Then we'll go in here and spin it and make sure we have the box centered. If not, we'll have to get it as close as we can. So right now the steering wheel is straight. So I should be able to go 1.5 turns all the way left. There's one. That's 1 3/4. We go. There's back to 1. There's 2. 3 1/4 turns. So we need to go 1.5 would be. So we need to go 1 5/8 for it to be centered. So we know pointing at me is full lock to the right. There's 1. There's 2. 3 full turns. And about 1/4. So I need an 8. So 1 5/8 of a turn. So slightly more than 1.5 turns. We should be centered. We'll put the pitman arm on and see where it lines up and go from there. So now we know the steering wheel's centered. We are going to go ahead and put the pitman arm on and make sure it's dang near straight back. It looks really close. I'll go ahead and put the lock washer and the nut back on it. Oops. Ah! There we go. So that'll be on. We should be good to go forward from here. Next step is get the track bar bracket out of the way and check it out. Well, it's another day. Just got off work. Still in my work clothes. Ended up stopping by Lowe's. I wanted to get some fresh bolts for the steering box while I was thinking about it. I don't know how much more we're going to get done in this video. I was hoping to get the track bar bracket and a few other things done. But this video is getting kind of long, so I'm going to go ahead and show you those bolts, and we'll go from there. So what we have here is a 7/16 by 14 bolt. It's 4-inch long. These are grade 8. I wouldn't use anything less. Sorry guys, I was picking up some washers on a steering box. Definitely wouldn't recommend it. So let's go and get this on. Alright, 5/8 inch headed bolt. The bolt itself is a 7/16, as I was saying earlier. Let's go ahead and get this started. I'll start it with my normal ratchet wrench, or ratchet, sorry guys. And then we'll go ahead and switch over to the electric ratchet and just get it in there. While I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and replace all the bolts just because it looks better. Might as well replace all the rusty stuff with new and go from there. I think my ratchet's tired. Well, we'll see how long the ratchet lasts. But we got all new bolts. Might as well freshen it up. Remember to use a little bit of blue Loctite. Hold this in here. Alright, all the new bolts are in. Well, putting the last one in now. Forget it. Why don't we just go ahead and get the track bar bracket replaced while we're in here. Try to make as many steps as possible. Steering box is in. Now we'll get to this bracket right here, show you guys what I'm talking about. Get to replacing this. There's 2 bolts, and then 2 on the bottom side. Actually, you'll have to look from inside, but there's a couple bolts on the back side here. So let's show you guys the new bracket. Alright, so we're going to start by taking the 2 nuts off of this side of the bracket. They're 11/16. Alright. Then we'll come underneath, and there's 2 more bolts. Here's the other 2 bolts right here and right here. There's a nut above each one. So I'll have to get an extension and see if I can gun these out of here. They are kind of in a tight place. This could be 11/16. Sorry guys, sent you for a ride. Bolts out. And we gotta just get on this one. Alright. Different socket size. Alright. Alright, you have to get a wrench on this one. So you guys can see I got my wrench up in there. Got this loose. Got the nut off. We'll go and drop the bolt. Now we'll go and get the track bar bracket out. Alright, so here we are looking at both track bar brackets. The old, the new. They look identical, other than when I do my state inspection, they're going to tell what has been replaced and what hasn't. And I'm, due to legality reasons, when I go through the inspection, I have to list everything that was damaged in the wreck. And I'm putting front and rear suspension. So to cover my butt, I'm going to go ahead and put the new track bar bracket in. We're just going to take the new bracket, hang it on here for now. Then what we'll do is we'll line up the 2 bolts on the inner fender to hold it in place. Now one of the nuts and bolts on the inner frame rail in here is part of the existing frame rail. The nut bolt is, or the nut is in there. So we just got to start a bolt and thread it in. Then the other one is a bolt I had to replace. So it's an aftermarket bolt and washer. So let me go ahead and get these started and show you guys what we're doing. You can see I've got this bolt started. Then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get this bolt in here. A little bit of Loctite on both of those. Now I want to get these bolts started, but not tightened down all the way. Because what I'm going to do is tighten down the bolts on the inner fender. That way it'll pull the bracket into where it needs to be. So, now this one has a washer up here. That way, I have washers on both sides of the bolt. So those bolts are hand tight, or at least started. Then we'll switch to the outside and put the nuts on there. All right. So here we are back to the inner fender. A little bit of Loctite on the threads. Like I said, I'll get these in here and crank down. And then we can tighten up the ones inside the frame rail. Finally. So just start these by hand. Oh, man. And you guys, I am sorry that my videos drag on sometimes, but I don't want to cut corners. I want to show you guys step by step what I'm doing. That way we are all on the same page. So. We got that snugged in. Now we'll go back underneath and do those 2 bolts. So that's snugged in. Now we'll go ahead and do this other one that I got to change sockets for. Hope everything else I guess. Alright, got a wrench on there. There, everything's snugged up. We can final torque everything later on. Alright, here we have our track bar. This curved end right here goes down by the axle. This round part right here goes up by the frame rail. So you guys can see, let me get you guys as close as I can. Now this track bar setup has changed since the other iron rock setup I had. So we'll go ahead and, oops, forgot the clamps, guys, my bad. So I had to clamp over and then thread this on. Once this is on, then we can go ahead and thread the other side on. To get it on there good enough. We're going to have to adjust this down to size anyways. It's got to be about 33 inches. So, there you guys go. A little bit better view. Then we'll take this other side, thread it on here. Now on this one, traditionally they use poly bushings. I opted for a flex joint on the axle side. So we got this started. Now we're going back to this end over here. And you guys can see I have a workbench mess, but we got these poly bushings. I believe they're poly. We're just going to snap them in place. Like so. And this one like so. Now, that being said, when these are in, you have two different sleeves that come in this kit. And yes, I have two extra bushings as well. If you choose not to run the flex joints, you can run poly on both ends. There's a larger bolt bushing and a smaller bushing. The smaller is for the axle side. We don't need those on this one. We're not going to be using them. So we got this in here. And then you guys can just go and give it a love tap if it doesn't want to go in. So bear with me 1 second. Bushings pressed in. Don't mind the mess. Then we'll go to the other side and we've got this flex joint, just like we did on the axle housing, for the side that meets up with the axle bracket. So you guys can see this side. We got our little plastic or halves. Just going to push one side in. And then we'll take the other side and set it aside for now. We've got our little sphere end. We got to get some grease on this. I'm going to put some gloves on for that. Then we've got our retaining halves that we'll put some bolts in here. So let me grab the grease. I'll be right back with you. So we're going to take some grease and just smear it in here. The only thing I think would have been cool to see, and I don't know about room or if there's a way, but if we could have made it so we could grease these on the axle. So put some grease on here, just like so. Drop this in. Then we take this other half, grease it as well. And then put this over. Now once we get these two halves together, we are going to go ahead and put a retainer on them. As you guys can see, like on this side, it'll get a retainer. And this just assembles just like we did on the axle housing. Let me get everything lined up and I'll be right back with you.
We're going to insert these bolts one by one with a little bit of Loctite.
Put it right there. You're going to take your Allen wrench. You're going to just tighten this down.
Okay.
The bolts are in my hand. You're going to take a little bit of blue Loctite, put it on there.
Only on one side?
It's just a little dab. Doesn't need a lot. Oh, just drop it in one of the holes. Preferably across. Perfect. Here's the other bolt.
Thank you.
So we're going to get these nice and snug. They don't have to be cranked down because they're small bolts. Got it? Smaller bolts, you got to be careful because they break easily. It's alright. If you do a little bit too much, it's fine.
At least I have gloves.
Yep. You know, pull this bolt back out so you can put some Loctite on this one too, okay?
Yeah. It has
Drop it in that hole.
blue in that.
Yep.
That means if it's dark blue, then that means it's good, right?
Yep. Just a medium grade Loctite. Not heavy duty, but it's good enough for what we're doing. Alright, these are good and snug.
So now we're gonna do the other side of it.
Alright, so we have our bolts and washer. Gonna feed it through this in here. We're gonna leave these bolts loose for now. I want to leave them loose until I can get the measurement to iron rock specs. They have a recommended starting length for the amount of lift you're running to keep your axle centered. So we'll get it to their measurement, get the axle in the truck, and then determine where we need to be to actually have the axle centered left and right. So these bolts are in, and this should complete our assembly, and this will be ready for the next video. Like that. Now let me show you the whole assembly. You guys can see flex joint on the axle side, clamps on the adjuster, right down to our poly bushings. Pretty cool looking setup. Alright, we're ending the video here. We got the steering box in, got the track bar built, track bar bracket in. We'll go ahead and get the cross member and all that in the next video. Hopefully you guys liked what you saw.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
God bless. Take care. Thanks for watching.